Whether it's been in peacekeeping operations or in combat, Humvee light tactical vehicles like this M1114 have been playing a key role serving the U.S. and its allied armed forces around the world since 1985. The major reasons for the success of the Humvee are twofold. One, the quality, durability, and versatility of the Humvee's design, and two, the skill and proficiency of the vehicle's operators. The success and safety of missions involving the Humvees depends to a large extent on this second point. That's what this video program will focus on: how to operate the Humvee proficiently, and most importantly, how to operate it safely. Let's begin with a review of the Humvee's lineup and some of its key features. The Humvee, which stands for High Mobility, Multi-Purpose Wheeled Vehicle, is available in several configurations. Except for a few differences in these configurations, the operating procedures are essentially the same for the basic M998 series, the A1 series, the A2 series, and the expanded capacity vehicle known simply as the ECV. At the heart of all Humvee powertrains is a 6.2-liter, a 6.5-liter, or a 6.5-liter turbocharged diesel engine. These engines are matched with either a 3-speed automatic or an electronically controlled 4-speed automatic transmission. Unlike conventional four-wheel drive vehicles, the Humvee's full-time four-wheel drive transfer case still maintains traction even when as many as 3 wheels lose their surface grip. The most noticeable characteristic of the Humvee is its wide stance. More than 7 feet across, it's just under a foot narrower than the M35 A3 2.5-ton truck. Its width provides optimal stability and is a key performance and design feature for its role operating in different terrain conditions. Other contributing factors to the stability and mobility of the Humvee are its geared hubs and double control arm independent suspension. These features help to provide higher ground clearance, which is especially important when the vehicle is subjected to off-road conditions. As you can see, the Humvee is no ordinary vehicle. Its ruggedness and versatility are the main reasons it has earned the reputation of being the light tactical wheeled vehicle of choice. The special handling characteristics of the Humvee are, in a word, dynamic. Unlike anything you would experience in a conventional passenger car or truck. When it comes to performance, when it really counts, this vehicle is in a very special class by itself. And because it is such a special and unique vehicle, the Humvee requires a very thorough understanding of its capabilities and maintenance requirements in order to keep it in top performance readiness. Since, as vehicle operators, you will likely be driving it in a variety of different terrain and climate conditions, you must know what the vehicle's capabilities are, as well as its limitations. Everything you'll need to know about operating and servicing the Humvee is contained in the Dash 10 Operator's Manual, which accompanies each vehicle. There's the 28010 manual for the basic A1 and A2 series, and the 38710 manual for the M1113 and M1114 ECV models. If you're unsure about a particular operating procedure or aspect of the Humvee, make sure you consult your manual for clarification. Now let's review some of the important things to remember about operating the Humvee. First, you'll need to do a complete checkout before operating the vehicle to be sure it is mission ready and safe. Complete all the preventive maintenance checks and services contained in the Before Operation section of the Dash 10 Operator's Manual to make sure that the vehicle is operational and mission capable. You'll also need to perform the during and after operation steps listed in this section of the manual as part of the overall requirements for operating the Humvee. Let's go over some of the more important checks you'll need to perform before actually driving the Humvee. Depending on the Humvee configuration and the terrain conditions, there are varying tire pressure requirements you'll need to be aware of. Be sure to follow the prescribed tire pressures as required in the PMCS with the specific Humvee configuration and vehicle application you're operating. Tire pressures should be checked weekly as required by the PMCS to make sure they are set to the correct levels for safe operation. There are also conditions where it is desirable to underinflate the tires to provide added traction like in sand, mud, or snow. Be sure to check the recommended tire pressure settings for varying driving conditions in the tire maintenance section of the PMCS in the Dash 10 manual. We'll review these different driving conditions in more detail during the ride and handling portion of the video. When you climb into the cab of the Humvee, you'll have a number of things to review as you continue your before operation checkout. For starters, make sure the driver's seat is properly adjusted to permit safe and comfortable control of steering, braking, and acceleration. For use in emergencies, make sure the first aid kit is aboard and properly secured under the driver's seat in all models, except the M1114, where it's under the passenger seat. The fire extinguisher should also be located either under the driver's seat or off to the left side, depending on the Humvee model you're operating. You'll also note there are two outside rear view mirrors that will need to be checked for proper visibility alignment before operating the vehicle. The mirror configuration procedure is a little more involved for vehicles with serial numbers below 100,000, in that they require manual pivoting, alignment, and securing of the arm assemblies to make adjustments. Here are the steps you should follow for that version to adjust both left and right side mirrors. First, raise and secure the hood. Next, use a screwdriver to loosen the nut securing the arm assembly to the mirror bracket. Then, adjust the mirror head and arm assembly to a proper viewing position. For the right side mirror, this means being able to see objects behind you through the windshield. Now, tighten the nut securing the arm assembly to the mirror bracket. Be sure to double check the alignment for both mirrors from inside the vehicle before closing the hood. If necessary, further adjustments can be made to the mirror head by adjusting the screws located in those areas behind the mirror assembly. Consult the rear view mirror adjustment section of the Dash 10 manual for specific instructions. For Humvees with serial numbers 100,000 and above, the rear view mirror adjustment process is somewhat easier. Begin by moving the pivoting arm assemblies on both mirrors until they lock in place. Adjust the driver's side rear view mirror by loosening the top nut on the pivot shaft. Position the shaft forward of the windshield so that the center line of the mirror arm is about 9 inches from the vehicle. Tighten the top nut and adjust the mirror head for best visibility. The procedure for the passenger side mirror is exactly the same, except that the center line of the mirror arm should be set about 7 inches from the vehicle before adjusting the mirror head for proper visibility. Proper mirror adjustment is a good illustration of precision and safety. The more precise the adjustments, the safer the vehicle becomes. Now let's take a look at some specific features you'll find on the M1114 ECV. An important attribute is its interior airflow and temperature control system. For example, the defroster in the M1114 has more than just the high-low control and operates quite differently from those generally found in other vehicles. Its manually activated de-icer system is actually integrated into the windshield, enabling it to keep clear during severe weather conditions. The air conditioner is another important component of the Humvee's interior air temperature control system. With the exception of the M997 ambulance and a few specialized Humvee configurations, the M1114 is the only Humvee with a heavy-duty 25,000 BTU air conditioning system to maintain crew comfort. Besides providing more comfort, it also preserves the vehicle's integrity and security. Plus provides a safer environment for the crew by eliminating the need to lower the ballistic glass windows to obtain fresh or cooler air. While learning to operate the Humvee proficiently is vital to the success of its mission role, nothing is more important than operating it safely. Safety is by far the #1 priority and goes hand in hand with success. Safety means making sure all weapons, cargo, and any loose items are properly stowed and secured before operating the vehicle. You should also be aware of the special partition door in the M1114, which provides inside access to cargo stowed in the rear of the vehicle. Safety means making sure that the driver and all passengers are secure, with safety seatbelts fastened at all times. And finally, safety means knowing how to safely operate and control the Humvee under varying terrain and climate conditions so that the crew remains secure and the mission successfully accomplished. This is especially important when transporting personnel, since seatbelt protection is provided only for the driver and passengers in the cab and not in the troop cargo area. If the vehicle you're operating is equipped with a turret and gunner's platform, all personnel should be inside the vehicle when driving over side slopes, hills, or obstacles. If the vehicle is not configured with a turret and gunner's platform, then operate the vehicle as required by the Unit Tactical Standard Operating Procedure. The crew doors you see here on the M1114 have a double latching mechanism designed to increase the overall security of the occupants by specifically protecting them from mine blasts that could occur in a combat situation. It's important to remember that you must engage the double latch manually to enable this protection. Doing so also relieves stress on the door hinges. Make sure the door is completely closed and secured before operating the vehicle. When done correctly, there should be no gap between the vehicle body and the door. Before starting the vehicle, make sure you know and understand what all the functional indicators represent on the Humvee instrument cluster. Check and monitor all gauges for proper readings, especially the voltmeter and fuel gauges before you start the vehicle, as well as during vehicle operation. When ready to start the vehicle, make certain you can see the following indicators on the instrument panel. When the engine stop, run, start switch is positioned to run, the wait to start lamp comes on, indicating that the glow plugs have been activated to heat the engine pre-combustion chambers, a requirement for the diesel engine. When the engine is warmed up, the wait to start lamp goes out, indicating the engine is now ready to be actually started. Do not attempt to start the engine before this lamp goes out. The brake warning lamp is another important indicator and remains on as long as the parking brake is engaged. The parking brake is an important safety feature of all Humvees. Before starting the vehicle, make sure it is properly engaged. The transmission should be in the park position for the A2 and ECV series, or in the neutral position for the basic and A1 Humvee. Some Humvee models may have a special release button on the parking brake. Otherwise, the systems are all alike. To release the parking brake, press the service brake pedal firmly and move the parking brake down until it is completely disengaged. Then, release the service brake pedal. The procedure is reversed to engage the parking brake. If the parking brake is not holding its grip properly and needs to be adjusted, make sure you first chock the wheels before proceeding. Next, release the parking brake handle and turn the adjusting knob clockwise, as tightly as possible by hand. Then, pull up on the handle to apply or engage the brake. If the parking brake does not engage properly, turn the adjusting knob counterclockwise until it does. To test the engagement of the parking brake, remove the chocks from the wheels and depress the service brake pedal. Start the engine. Place the transfer case shift lever in the H for high position and the transmission lever in D for drive. Slowly let up on the service brake pedal. The parking brake should hold the vehicle stationary. If not, repeat the brake adjustment procedure to find the right setting that will work. Once you've completed the checks we've just reviewed, and the others listed in the Preventive Maintenance Checks and Services section of the Dash 10 manual, you'll be ready to drive the vehicle. The Humvee is now checked out, secure, and ready for operation. The ride and handling portion of this video presentation will instruct you as to which transmission gear and transfer case selections to make for specific driving conditions and environments. If you experience any difficulties shifting the T-case, put the transmission in neutral, completely shut down the vehicle, then engage the T-case. It's important to be aware that the maximum operating speeds will vary depending on the transmission and transfer range selections made and the type of Humvee model configuration you're operating. The range can vary from 11 to 55 miles per hour depending on the combination selected. In addition, the overdrive feature only applies to vehicles equipped with a 4-speed transmission, namely the A2 series, the M1113, and the M1114 ECVs. If the Humvee you are driving has an S250 shelter installed, like the M1113, you can perform normal driving operations. However, when the shelter is removed, the predominant vehicle weight transfers from the cargo area to the engine area. This means that your vehicle is now front-heavy, and you will have to keep your speed below 40 miles per hour, and only then for short distances. This can be remedied by adding an equivalent payload of 1,500 pounds in the cargo area to approximate the weight of the shelter and thus distribute the overall vehicle weight more evenly. Other factors, like the gross vehicle weight of the Humvee and the terrain and driving conditions, all combine to affect the distance that can be traveled on a full tank of fuel. Under similar driving conditions, the cruising range for the Humvee varies from 275 miles to 337 miles, depending on the vehicle configuration. When operating the Humvee, be alert for unusual noises or vibrations and any other difficulties with handling. These symptoms could indicate a problem with steering, brakes, or some part of the powertrain. Above all, always use safe driving skills, even when driving in good weather on high traction surfaces where little or no wheel slippage is evident. Take nothing for granted and be prepared at all times. Here are a few important safety tips that will help make driving the Humvee a positive experience. Know the capabilities and the limitations of your vehicle to assure safe operation and proceed with caution at all times. Be aware of the space your Humvee occupies and learn to anticipate potentially dangerous situations by driving defensively. For sustained highway operation on high traction surfaces in good weather, select the H, high, transfer case range with the transmission in the D third or the D overdrive setting. As weather or road conditions change, upshift or downshift accordingly. Remember, although the Humvee was designed to be a versatile vehicle, it was not designed for high mobility at high speeds. When you accelerate, don't expect the responsiveness of a sports car. Focus on keeping all 4 wheels on the ground and adjust your driving to the current road conditions. One of the most critical aspects of safe vehicle operation is knowing how to properly negotiate turns and curves in the road. Always remember to approach them at reasonable speeds. Reducing speed enables the tires to maintain maximum traction. Make sure you check your mirrors for any blind spots and make the proper adjustments if any are found. If you start to lose control of your vehicle in a curve, let up on the accelerator. Avoid heavy braking, and as the vehicle slows down, gradually steer in the direction you want to go in. As you drive through the curve, wait until you are completely out of it before accelerating again. When using the brakes, avoid heavy braking. Instead, apply force with smooth and even pressure. This permits the wheels to continue rolling and maintain proper traction while the vehicle is slowing down. If the wheels do lock, release the brake pedal and repeat the steady increase in pressure technique. Because stopping distances vary with different weight loads and driving conditions, you should take full advantage of drivetrain braking when slowing down. Use lower gears to manually downshift, especially on steep grades. Not only is this a safe way to slow the vehicle down, but it also helps to extend the life of the brake linings. When driving on secondary road surfaces like rough asphalt, earth, or hard-packed gravel, vehicle operation is essentially the same as it is for normal high-traction surfaces. However, you must be prepared to slow down and adjust your driving technique for such changing conditions as encountering loose gravel. When faced with cross-country or off-road operations, special care and attention must be given to the unpredictable and unusual circumstances requiring good driving reflex and skill. It is in this kind of terrain that the Humvee operator must be most alert and exercise great caution. If you are driving a vehicle equipped with a 4-speed transmission, do not use the overdrive position when operating in off-road terrain, as this could seriously damage the transmission. One of the key ingredients to controlled, safe vehicle operation in off-road terrain conditions is the use of good driving sense. Here are a few helpful rules to follow when driving over rough terrain. Avoid sharp turns and abrupt maneuvers when negotiating rough terrain. Vehicle speed should be consistent with the weather and terrain conditions. If possible, avoid dangerous obstacles like stumps and boulders. When encountering a side slope, good judgment needs to be exercised in determining how to make your approach. Planning ahead helps to avoid having to stop in a dangerous situation, as on a hillside. If you do have to stop on a hillside, make sure you exit the vehicle on the uphill or high side to avoid placing yourself and crew in a vulnerable and potentially dangerous situation. If you are unsure, the rule of thumb is drive around the slope. If that is not possible and your tactical situation permits, walk over it first to get a better feel for the terrain. It is better to be sure. Navigating a side slope that is too steep could make the vehicle roll over, damaging equipment, and even causing serious injury or death to the vehicle occupants. Depending on the specific model you're operating and the terrain conditions, the Humvee is designed to traverse a side slope up to a maximum of 40%, or about 22 degrees, in the Basic, A1, and A2 series, and up to 30%, or about 17 degrees, in the ECVs. If you begin to experience wheel hop, you have exceeded the incline maximum limits. Keep in mind, these are maximum limits. If you approach these limits on other than clean, dry, solid surfaces, you compromise the safety of the vehicle and could endanger the occupants. If you're driving on a side slope in loose sand, gravel, or mud, use the serpentine method of steering the vehicle by weaving slightly back and forth. This will help to correct the vehicle's tendency of having the rear end drift down the slope. If that happens, steer into the direction of the slide to regain control. The Humvee is also capable of negotiating some fairly steep slopes, both up and down. It can navigate a slope grade up to a maximum of 60%, or 31 degrees. Another important point to remember is that if you're not sure of the grade severity, loose or slippery surfaces will reduce the vehicle's ability to negotiate the grade. When coming to the top of a hill, be sure to slow down and prepare to stop if necessary. There may be a steep drop or other potentially dangerous conditions ahead. Don't drive blind. Use good driving sense and avoid serious problems before they happen. When going uphill, adjust the vehicle's speed and select the proper transmission and transfer case ranges before starting. You may have to use the low gear range, first or second gear, to obtain the best driveline torque. Be sure to accelerate smoothly and not too fast, or the vehicle could lose its traction. Maintain your speed level as you continue up the incline. Drive straight up or straight down a hill whenever possible, and avoid having to turn or maneuver during the climb. This is especially critical when negotiating a steep hill, where the potential for losing traction, sliding sideways, or possibly even rolling over is greatest. This could cause damage to the equipment and even serious injury or death. Use the drivetrain to brake when slowing the vehicle down or when going downhill. In this situation, gear down according to your speed and use the engine compression and the low ranges of the transmission and transfer case to help control the speed. If you're in deep sand, don't use the brakes. It is best to keep the wheels moving to a point where you can safely control the vehicle. If you encounter a large dip or ditch in the terrain, enter at about a 15-degree angle, making sure that 3 wheels maintain contact with the ground at all times. When encountering large dips, ditches, or small washes, coast into the obstacle using the engine as a brake. Then use the low ranges of the transmission and transfer case to power out. If approaching a ridge, remember to slow down, as it is possible for the vehicle to get airborne crossing the ridge, resulting in a loss of control and possible injury to the occupants. In order to maximize traction when going over the ridge, select a path that provides the same surface conditions for both wheels of the same axle. As with crossing a ditch, use an angular approach to be sure that 3 of the vehicle's wheels remain on solid footing. The Humvee is also capable of crossing logs and other obstacles, such as rocks and mounds, up to 16 inches in height. The proper way to cross the log is to approach it at about a 15-degree angle. You should then walk the vehicle over the log, 1 tire at a time. As the tire makes contact with the log, slowly and carefully accelerate up the log, and use the service brakes to ease each tire down. Those are some typical encounters you're very likely to face on operational missions involving the Humvee. Now, let's review some of the more unusual and adverse conditions you could be confronted with during operation. One of those is water fording. All Humvees can ford up to 30 inches without the need for any auxiliary equipment. Marine Corps Humvees are attached with deep water fording kits that enable them to ford up to 60 inches of water. These kits are not available on the M1114 ECV. You should never attempt shallow water fording unless the water depth is known to be 30 inches or less, with a bottom surface that is hard and stable. The vehicle should not exceed 5 miles per hour while fording. If you enter the water too fast, it will splash up over the hood and into the air intake, causing the engine to stop abruptly. Under this condition, attempting to start the vehicle could damage the engine. When fording, the proper way to enter the water is at a slow and steady, even vehicle speed. Exit the water in an area that has a gentle slope, if possible. To dry out the brakes, drive at low speeds while slowly applying pressure on the brake pedal until uneven braking ceases. Sand terrain presents some unique conditions for the Humvee. Deflating the tires will provide a larger footprint and load-bearing surface for better traction and to help the vehicle stay on top of the sand. Be careful not to deflate the tires beyond the recommended tire pressure for this type of terrain application. Refer to the Tire Pressure Selection Guide in the PMCS section of the Dash 10 manual for the precise recommendations for the Humvee model you're driving. Following completion of the mission operation, be sure to reinflate the tires to the proper pressure levels, especially if the surface you'll be driving on is a normal improved road. If your vehicle is being driven over sand dunes, it is generally recommended that you use a perpendicular approach, both in ascending and descending the dunes. However, if the sand is extremely soft and the degree of slope not too steep, then the dune can be climbed at approximately a 45-degree angle from the perpendicular approach. If possible, when coming to the top of a sand dune, make sure you stop and check the area before proceeding. There may be some unforeseen obstacles and dips that could cause serious problems. When driving down the face of a sand dune, use the compression of the engine and the low range in both the transmission and transfer case to control speed and come straight down the dune without using the brakes. Whenever driving in soft sand, try to secure better and safer traction by avoiding the ruts caused by other vehicles. When traversing a sandy hill, keep the Humvee moving steadily. If the vehicle bogs down and stops, it may be because the sand is extremely soft, or the vehicle's approach to the hill was too slow, causing a loss of momentum. In this situation, back the vehicle up and put the transfer case setting in the HL, or high lock position, and the transmission in the D, or drive position, and try again at a safe and moderate speed. If the vehicle continues to bog down, shift the transfer case to the L, or low position, and put the transmission in drive, and try again. If the vehicle bogs down in the low position, look for an alternate route. When operating in loose sand, it is possible to experience continuous wheel slippage. If this occurs, place the transfer case shift lever in the high lock position and the transmission in the drive setting. Whenever possible, select the high setting for sand terrain, where little or no wheel slippage is experienced. As with sand, operating in mud conditions is enhanced when the tire pressures are deflated to the recommended settings to provide a larger footprint for better traction. Before driving in muddy conditions, place the transfer case shift lever in the high lock position and the transmission shift lever in the drive position. To avoid skidding and loss of steering control, drive the Humvee slowly. If the rear end starts to sway or skid, immediately turn in the direction of the skid to regain control. For rainy or humid conditions, observe roads carefully and proceed slowly. Use the appropriate transfer case and transmission settings recommended for this particular circumstance. The other extreme is heat. This condition exists whenever the ambient temperature reaches 95 degrees or more. To prevent damage to the transfer case, avoid continuous operation at high speeds and long hard pulls on steep grades with the transfer case shift lever in the low position. When operating in extreme heat, it is important to frequently check the vehicle's gauges, in particular the coolant temperature and oil pressure gauges. The engine is in an overheated state whenever one or more of the following conditions exists. The engine coolant temperature is above 230 degrees Fahrenheit, or the oil pressure is either below 15 psi when the engine is under load, or when the oil pressure is below 6 psi when it's idling. If the gauges indicate an overheated condition, pull off the road and allow the engine to idle. Check the coolant temperature for steady cooling. If there is no change, or the temperature rises beyond the 230 degree mark, turn off the engine. Snow and icy surfaces also require a deflated tire pressure setting to provide a safe traction footprint. Remember to reinflate the tires to their previous normal settings once driving conditions have improved. Operating in ice or snow can be a hazardous condition. Reduce speeds and be prepared for sudden changes in road conditions by maintaining a safe stopping distance. When stopping the vehicle on ice or snow, pump brakes gradually to avoid wheel lockup and potential damage to the vehicle and injury or death to personnel. Place the transmission shift lever in the drive position. If operating the A2, M1113, or the M1114, put the transmission in the D overdrive setting. The transfer case shift lever should be placed in the high position. Put the vehicle in motion slowly to prevent the wheels from spinning. Never apply brakes when a wheel is spinning out, or damage to the drivetrain could occur. If rear-end skidding should occur, let up on the accelerator and steer the vehicle in the direction of the skid to regain control as you gradually pump the brake pedal. If you do get stuck in snow, do not attempt to rock the vehicle back and forth by shifting the transmission from reverse to drive. This could damage the drivetrain in the Humvee. Adverse driving conditions in ice and snow may require the addition of tire chains to the vehicle. Consult the -10 manual for instructions on how to proceed. One of the most dangerous conditions occurs when the vehicle goes into an uncontrolled spinout. This occurs most frequently when road surfaces are wet or covered with snow or ice. However, spinouts can happen in a number of other conditions, like sand and mud. By remembering a few key points, vehicle spinouts can often be brought back safely under control. Try the following procedure. Assuming the transfer case is set in the high range when the spinout begins, remove your foot from the accelerator pedal and allow the engine RPMs to return to idle level. Wait for the vehicle spinout to stop. Then, apply the brakes to keep the wheels from spinning again. Slowly depress the accelerator pedal to increase the engine's RPMs. If the vehicle moves without continuous spinout occurrences, continue the mission. If the spinout continues, remove your foot from the accelerator and allow the engine RPM level to return to idle again, and wait for the spinout to stop. Do not attempt to use the accelerator pedal or service brake unless at least one wheel has good traction on a firm surface. If you still have a problem, stop the vehicle, shut down the engine, and call for recovery assistance. One of the most sudden occurrences that can happen when driving any vehicle is experiencing a tire blowout. Here are some basic things you can do if it should happen to you while operating the Humvee. The first thing the operator should do is back off the accelerator and focus on maintaining control of the vehicle, especially the steering. If the vehicle does go out of control, apply a quick burst of acceleration. This will help to realign the front and rear ends of the vehicle, allowing the operator to regain full control. Any necessary steering corrections can then be made before slowing the vehicle down until it comes to a full stop in a safe location. The program you've just seen was designed to provide an overview of how to drive the Humvee proficiently, and most importantly, safely. For further details and instructions, be sure to consult the -10 manual that accompanies the vehicle for a comprehensive review of the requirements for the operation and maintenance of the Humvee. The Humvee is an extraordinary vehicle. Like the crew it carries, it must be respected and cared for. You are part of a select group that has been entrusted with the important role of operating the Humvee responsibly. Even the most thorough training cannot be a substitute for the genuine commitment each operator must make to learn how to operate the Humvee proficiently and to operate it safely. Take the opportunity now to demonstrate that commitment with the same pride that has become a hallmark of the Humvee heritage.